The storm above Varel raged like a wounded beast. Thunder rolled across the black sky, and the fires of the ruined city burned brighter with every passing second. Cale stood on the broken ground, his eyes fixed on the faint blue light that pulsed among the clouds. It was distant but powerful, an old Terran signal beacon. It could only mean one thing. The ancient human fleet was no longer asleep. Eris stared up too, feeling an unknown pressure in her chest. She didn't understand what that light was, but she could feel it. Something deep and primal told her that it wasn't just a ship or a machine. It was alive in its own way, full of purpose and fury. She looked at Cale, standing tall despite his cracked armor. "What is that?" Cale didn't look away. "A memory. One your empire tried to bury." "What kind of memory glows in the sky?" she asked quietly. "The kind that remembers everything it lost," Cale said. His tone was calm, but his eyes were cold with something like sorrow. For a moment Eris couldn't speak. The human's words carried a strange weight, the kind that made her chest tighten without knowing why. Then the sound of engines broke the silence. Rebel ships were approaching again, flying low over the city ruins. Cale turned to her. "We need to move before they spot us." Eris hesitated. "Where will we go?" "The rebels control the upper districts. If we're caught, they'll kill us both." Cale gave her a brief look. "They can try." The way he said it wasn't arrogance, it was simple fact. He started walking, and after a moment, she followed. The two of them made their way through the shattered streets, avoiding patrol drones and fallen towers. The storm wind carried sparks and dust. As they walked, Eris kept glancing at him. There was something strange about his presence. Even wounded and exhausted, he moved like someone who had been fighting wars his entire life. But there was no hatred in him, only a quiet determination. Finally, she asked, "Cale, if humans really were destroyed, how did you survive?" He was silent for a long time before answering. "I was part of Project Haven. When the Terran Dominion realized the war was lost, they built stasis vaults, deep under planets hidden from scanners. We were to sleep until the galaxy forgot us. Then we'd rebuild," Eris frowned. "And the others?" Cale shook his head. "I don't know. Maybe I'm the only one left. Maybe not," she didn't reply. Something about his loneliness made her chest ache, but she didn't know why. They reached an underground entrance hidden beneath a collapsed transport hub. Cale activated a panel and an old Terran door hissed open. Inside was a tunnel lined with dim blue lights. The air was cold and stale. "This place," Cale said quietly, "leads to the command core." Eris followed him in, her footsteps echoing. "Command core? For what?" Cale looked over his shoulder. "For the fleet," her eyes widened. "The one in orbit?" He nodded once. "The Aegis line, 57 ships. Battleships, carriers, dreadnoughts. The last defense line of Earth." Eris stopped walking. "You mean those ships are human relics? They've been here all this time?" Cale's voice was low. "Hidden, waiting. I was programmed to wake if someone found the vault, or if the fleet's core AI detected a Terran genetic match." Eris blinked. "A genetic match? But humans are gone." Kyle turned to her, his expression unreadable. "Not completely." Before she could ask what he meant, the tunnel lights flickered. A faint vibration ran through the floor. "They've found the bunker," Cale said. Eris drew her blade again. "Then we fight." Kyle looked at her and almost smiled. "Not like last time. Come on." They reached a vast chamber at the end of the tunnel, a command room filled with ancient consoles, holographic projectors, and the faint hum of old power cells. At the center of it stood a large crystalline core glowing with blue light. It pulsed slowly, like a heartbeat. Cale approached it. The moment his hand touched the surface, the entire chamber came alive. Lights blazed to life. Holograms flickered. A calm, feminine voice spoke through the air. Recognition code confirmed. "Welcome back, Commander Cale." Eris took a step back in shock. "It's alive." Cale didn't react. "Fleet status?" "All systems in dormant standby. Awaiting activation code." Cale's eyes narrowed. "Authorization, Omega Terra Prime, unlock orbital command." The crystal pulsed brighter. "Authorization accepted. Reactivating fleet protocols." Above them, in orbit, the ancient Terran ships began to move. One by one, their engines came online, lighting up the dark sky with blue fire. The air on the surface crackled with static. Eris looked at the screen in awe. Massive silhouettes of warships filled the clouds, their hulls marked with the faded insignia of Earth. They were beautiful and terrifying at the same time. "What are you doing?" she asked softly. Kale looked at her. Finishing what humanity started, her eyes widened. You're going to attack the rebels? If I don't, Kyle said. They'll use this planet's tech to invade others. They already destroyed their own world for power. I can't let them spread that. Before she could respond, a blinding explosion tore through the tunnel entrance. Rebel soldiers poured into the chamber, firing plasma bolts. Kale spun around, raising his rifle. Eris leapt beside him, her blade singing through the air. The fight was brutal but swift. Kale moved like a storm. Every strike precise, every motion deadly. Eris fought with speed and grace, matching his rhythm. Together they held the line, but more troops kept coming. Suddenly, a high-pitched alarm echoed through the chamber. The crystal core flashed red. Unauthorized access detected, the AI warned. Foreign command signal incoming, Kale cursed. They're trying to hijack the fleet. Eris ran to the console, her fingers moving across the alien interface. I can block it if I can decode their signal in time. Kale covered her, firing bursts of plasma that turned the tunnel into a wall of light. Do it fast! Eris's hands trembled as she worked. Her heart pounded. She had trained all her life to command ships and armies, but this was different. This was ancient human technology, fierce, unpredictable, alive. Finally, she shouted, I've got it, and slammed her palm onto the console. The red light faded back to blue. The AI's voice returned. Hijack attempt neutralized. Awaiting further orders. Kale lowered his weapon slightly, breathing hard. Good work, Eris gave a small, tired smile. I'm not completely useless, you know. Kale allowed a faint smile. Never said you were. For a moment, the tension eased. But then a new sound filled the chamber. Something heavy, metallic. Approaching from the darkness. From the shadows emerged a massive figure. An armored rebel commander nearly twice Kale's size, his armor glowing crimson. He carried a heavy blade crackling with red plasma. So, the rebel growled, the ghost of humanity still walks. Kyle stepped forward. You should have stayed hidden, the rebel laughed. And missed the chance to kill the last human? The Empire feared you, but I'll carve your legend into dust, he charged. The clash was thunderous. Kyle met his blade with his own, sparks flying. Eris watched in stunned silence as the two warriors fought like titans. The rebel's strength was overwhelming, but Kale's precision was unmatched. Every movement was controlled, efficient, deadly. The ground shook with each blow. Finally, the rebel swung wide, overextending. Kale stepped in and drove his blade through the commander's chest. The crimson light flickered and died. When it was over, Kale stood silently for a moment, his breathing steady. Eris approached slowly, eyes wide. You killed him. Kyle looked at her. He would have killed us both. I know, she said softly. But the way you fight, it's like you've done this 1,000 times, Kale didn't answer. He turned back to the crystal core. The fleet was now fully awake, waiting for his command. Then the AI spoke again. Commander, secondary genetic match detected in proximity. Kale froze. What? Eris blinked. What does that mean? The crystal pulsed brighter. Analyzing. Match confirmed. Subject, Xylan Princess Eris, genetic code 47% Terran. The room went silent. Eris stared at the core, her eyes wide with disbelief. That's not possible. I'm Xylan, my mother is Empress Lysara. Kyle's voice was quiet but steady. And your father? Eris's breath caught. I never knew him. He died before I was born. Kyle looked at her for a long time. Then slowly his voice broke the silence. I think we've met before. Eris shook her head. No, that can't be, but the core's voice was calm, undeniable. Lineage data confirms. Subject Eris, offspring of Commander Kale Terran. Hybrid class. Eris staggered back. Her knees almost gave way. No, this isn't real. Kyle said nothing. His face was pale, but his eyes were full of something deep and painful. Regret. He finally spoke, his voice quiet. Your mother, Lysara. She was the envoy who came to Earth before the war. She tried to stop it. Eris looked at him, trembling. You're saying you were with her? Kale nodded slowly. She was the last person I saw before the bombs fell. Tears welled in Eris's eyes. Then Kyle stepped closer gently. My daughter. The words seemed to freeze time. The storm outside quieted for a moment as if the world itself paused. Eris stared at him, her mind spinning. The stories she had grown up hearing, humans as monsters, destroyers, demons, shattered in an instant. The man before her wasn't a monster. He was her father. Kale's expression was calm but full of sorrow. "I never knew you existed. The stasis vault. It took me away before I could find her." Eris covered her mouth, tears falling silently. "All my life, I thought humans were the enemy. I thought my blood was pure." Kale's hand rested lightly on. The planet was quiet after the storm. Thick gray clouds drifted above the shattered skyline, and the smell of burnt metal filled the air. The city of Virel had once been the jewel of the Xylan Empire, towers of crystal, floating bridges, and blue firelights that danced above the streets. But now it was silent, broken, and covered in ash. In the middle of that silence walked a single figure, his boots crunching over the glass fragments. His name was Kale. His armor was scarred and old, not like the sleek metal suits of the alien soldiers who ruled the stars. It looked ancient, black steel with faint blue lines glowing across the chest like veins of frozen lightning. Kale's eyes scanned the ruins, calm and focused. He wasn't a soldier of the Empire. He wasn't even supposed to exist. To the galaxy, humanity was a myth. A primitive race said to have died out 1,000 years ago after the Terran Exodus War. No one had seen a human in centuries. The Xylan archives said they were extinct, but Kale was living proof that the archives were wrong. He had been asleep for a long time. Hidden deep within an ancient Terran bunker buried under Virel's surface, he had awoken only weeks ago when the system detected the city's destruction. His mission, long forgotten by most, was simple: protect humanity's secrets and destroy any who sought to misuse them. Now, as he moved through the ruins, Kale was following a faint energy signal. It wasn't human, but it was close. Something or someone was calling to him. He stopped at the base of a half-collapsed spire. A faint humming came from within, like the pulse of a dying machine. Carefully, he pushed aside the debris. Behind the rubble was a smooth metal door marked with glowing alien symbols. He recognized the script. It was Xylan Royal Code, a royal bunker. Kale tightened his grip on his plasma blade. He didn't want to fight, but he wasn't about to walk blind into an enemy den. With a soft hiss, the door slid open. The air inside was cold and sharp like frozen ozone. He stepped in. Inside the bunker was dim light, and at the center of the chamber stood a tall, silver-haired alien woman wearing armor that shimmered like glass. Her eyes were sharp, glowing violet with vertical pupils, and her expression was a mix of pride and fear. She was clearly of noble blood, but when she turned her head and saw Kale, her entire body froze. For a long moment, they just stared at each other. The hum of the bunker filled the silence. Then she whispered something under her breath, her voice trembling. "Impossible." "That scent." Kyle stopped, confused. "What?" Her eyes widened. Her hand shook slightly as she reached for her weapon, but she didn't draw it. Instead, she took a step back, her voice breaking. "That scent. Are you human?" Kale didn't answer. He simply looked at her, silent, his face unreadable. The alien woman, Princess Eris of the Xylan Empire, felt her heart pounding in her chest. She had been taught since childhood that humans were monsters, beasts of war that once tried to burn the stars. The Empire's history book said humanity had wiped out half the known galaxy before they were destroyed by their own weapons. To her, humans were legends of terror, stories used to scare disobedient children. And yet one was standing right in front of her. Kyle stepped forward, his boots echoing across the cold metal floor. His presence was heavy, like the air itself bent around him. His voice was calm, deep, and measured. "Who are you?" She hesitated. I am Princess Eris of the Xylan Empire." "The Empire," Kale said slowly, as if testing the word. "So it still stands," Eris nodded. "You should not exist. Humans are extinct." Kyle gave a small, humorless smile. "So I've been told." Silence filled the chamber again. The flickering lights above them buzzed weakly, and a faint alarm blinked on one of the consoles. Kale noticed that Eris was injured. Her left arm hung limply and blood had dried along her armor's edge. "You're wounded," he said. Eris frowned, pride flashing in her eyes. "I don't need your concern, human." Kyle didn't respond. He moved closer to the console, glancing at the data streams in alien script. It was a distress signal, still active but weak. Someone had attacked this bunker. He turned his head slightly. "Who did this?" Eris hesitated, watching him carefully. "Rebels," she said. "They wanted the royal core. They thought I was hiding it here." Kale frowned. "And are you?" Her eyes narrowed. Why would I tell you that? Kale's expression didn't change. Because if those rebels return, we'll both be dead. And I'd rather not die twice. For a second, Eris almost smiled despite herself. His tone wasn't arrogant, it was calm, confident, and strangely human. She couldn't sense any hostility in his voice, only quiet resolve. Then the ground trembled. Distant explosions echoed through the tunnels. They found us, Kale said flatly. Eris cursed in her native tongue. The rebels are using gravitic drills. They'll break through in minutes. Kyle walked to the wall and pressed his armored hand against the surface. The blue lines on his armor brightened. With a deep metallic sound, part of the wall slid open, revealing a hidden cache of Terran weapons, ancient but well-preserved. Eris stared in disbelief. You had Terran weapons stored here? Kale gave her a brief glance. This bunker isn't yours, Princess. It was human. Your people built over it centuries ago. Before she could reply, the ceiling shook again. Eris activated her energy blade, its edge glowing bright purple. Kale reached for one of the Terran rifles, its heavy form fitting perfectly in his hands. The two stood side by side as the wall cracked open, revealing a swarm of armored rebels with glowing red eyes and pulse rifles. Kale moved first. His weapon hummed, and blue plasma cut through the air with thunderous power. The rebels' shields shattered instantly. Eris joined him, her blade flashing in graceful arcs of light. Together they fought. Two enemies, human and alien, forced into alliance by chaos. Kale's movements were precise and deadly. He didn't waste motion. Every shot was clean, every step measured. The rebels were trained killers, but they were no match for the old human war design. The ancient armor absorbed hits that should have vaporized him. Within minutes, the corridor was silent again. Smoke rose from the floor and the smell of scorched metal filled the air. Eris leaned against a wall, breathing hard. Her arm trembled from exhaustion. Kale walked over, checked the passage for more enemies, then looked at her. You're lucky I woke up, he said. Eris gave a weak, defiant glare. I didn't ask for your help. I didn't offer it, Kale replied evenly. For a moment she didn't know whether to be angry or impressed. Then her gaze softened slightly. You fight like a legend. Kale tilted his head. Maybe legends are just soldiers who lived too long. There was silence again, but this time it wasn't hostile. It was heavy with questions neither dared to ask. Finally, Eris broke it. If you are human, then you are dangerous. My empire will hunt you. Every fleet, every ship. Kyle looked toward the ceiling, where faint echoes of battle still rumbled above. They can try. Eris felt a strange chill at his tone. He didn't sound like he was boasting. He sounded like someone who had seen entire empires burn and didn't fear it happening again. Suddenly, a faint blue hologram appeared beside them, flickering weakly. It was a woman's face, older, human, dressed in Terran command uniform. Kale froze for a heartbeat. Commander Kale, the hologram said softly. If you're seeing this, then the stasis vault has failed. You have awakened. The mission remains the same. Protect the genetic legacy. Do not let them find her. The hologram faded. Eris looked at him sharply. Find who? Kale didn't answer. His expression turned unreadable again. Before she could press further, a deep explosion shook the bunker, stronger than before. The structure groaned. Kale grabbed Eris's uninjured arm. We need to move, he said. She tried to resist at first, but the ceiling cracked and fire burst through the corridor. Together they ran through the tunnels, dodging falling debris. The ground split and a shockwave threw them into another chamber. When Eris opened her eyes, Kale was crouched over her, shielding her from debris. His armor was cracked but still glowing faintly. For a moment, she just stared at him, speechless. His face was calm, eyes focused, but his movements, protective, instinctive, confused her. He wasn't acting like an enemy. When they finally reached the surface, the night sky burned orange with fire. Rebel dropships circled above. Kale and Eris stood among the ruins, the cold wind carrying the smell of smoke and rain. Eris turned to him, her expression unreadable. Who are you, really? Kale looked at her with quiet eyes. Just a man who woke up too late. She hesitated. Then why did you save me? Kale's gaze drifted to the burning city. Because humans don't leave people to die, not even their enemies. For a long moment, Eris said nothing. Then she took a small step closer, her voice softer now. The galaxy says your kind were monsters. Kale looked at her. Maybe. Or maybe the monsters are the ones who wrote the story. The wind howled through the ruins, carrying their silence. Somewhere far in the distance, thunder rolled. Eris felt something unfamiliar inside her chest. Fear. Yes, but also awe. She looked at Kale, this quiet warrior from a dead world, and whispered almost to herself, "What are you?" Kale didn't reply. He just turned his head slightly as if listening to something distant, something calling from the stars, and far above them, beyond the clouds, something answered, a faint blue light pulsing in orbit, awakening after centuries of sleep. Human technology, the ancient Terran fleet, was waking up.